Not what it needed to be for what feels like the millionth time this year as we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur. Now they are still without a win in the Premier League since December 6th, 2025. Well, this is the story it tells for them. We have to go to the bottom half of the standings where Spurs find themselves in the relegation zone, 2 points away from safety. Craig, it's a new manager, but same old Spurs.
Well, they didn't get walloped. So that's a start.
And it took a wicked deflection to beat them.
It was a lucky goal.
Because they got walloped in the second half at home against Nottingham Forest. It was embarrassing. Look, I think De Zerbi's I think he's a very good manager.
Yeah.
You know, he was at Marseille, where it's a crazy place, but they played some really good football early on in the season before it went a little awry. Obviously, he's been at Brighton. He's been all over. He's been in, I think, Ukraine and Italy. His teams play good football, and it's going to take him time. And we didn't really see that today, because particularly as the game wore on, Casey and I were talking, I never ever felt they were going to score or even come close. So they're really lacking some creativity, and he's going to have to figure that out with the players that they've got. Xavi Simons come on, Matthias Tel come on, but really weren't able to have any real impact in the final third. And the question will be, is De Zerbi going to be able to make them play well enough in the final games to win games, or is he going to be able to make them a hard and gritty and grinding team to get the results? Because he's not that type of manager, but it's requiring that type of result.
But do they have that type of player?
That is the question. I don't think anybody's questioning his credentials, and given time over a period with transfer windows and time on the training field, I have no doubt he'll make Tottenham a better side. But they're in this vacuum, which is, we just need to get results. Right. We just need to roll our sleeves up. And that means keeping clean sheets, grinding results out, and somehow creating enough to pick up 3 points and grabbing a point here and there, which they're not doing. Well, even Forest at home to Villa, I didn't see that game because I was watching Tottenham. But a point here, a point there, maybe a win there. Tottenham, it's hard to see where even those grinding points are going to come from. So I don't know what effect De Zerbi's going to have in such a short space of time.
To the point, obviously he's an ex-Spurs player, but I'm thinking of Craig and I talking about who's going to score a goal. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking back to Spurs strikers that we're used to seeing, from, Klinsmann to Teddy Sheringham to Les Ferdinand to Robbie Keane to Jermaine Defoe to Harry Kane to, maybe at times Spurs can be a little cavalier, but on the day, you can outscore your opponent, or you could. I'm watching Richarlison, I'm watching Solanke, and I'm thinking, where are the goals coming from? And then the creativity in the midfield. Who's running at people? Who's 1-2s? I know it's a hard comparison, but then you watch that second half from Man City, and you're like, Spurs, for their faults at times, it was never in the creative part of the field.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was maybe a little too much. Let's invest too much money here to make our fans happy, and it might leave us a little suspect back here. But never was it a case of going, are Tottenham going to score a goal? That's just not in Tottenham's DNA.
Jules, what was your takeaway from the Spurs that we saw under Roberto De Zerbi, and what the guys are saying as well about where would the goals come from for Spurs? It's weird that we have to ask this now.
Yeah, I'll come to that in a minute. Maybe I'm a bit harsh, but he's been in charge for 10 days. What have they been doing for 10 days? What have they been working on? Because today we didn't see anything. Maybe the power shot, when he plays on Solanke and that lays the ball back to him, and then he has that shot. Because apart from that, I just didn't see anything of what we could have seen for De Zerbi. I don't know, remember when Tuchel took over Chelsea, he had 2 days to prepare for that Wolves game, but already then you saw the setup, the press, the desire, and it was obviously different. They were not third from bottom, but they were not great at the time. Like, he took over Lampard, they were 9th in the table or 10th in the table or something like that. What is this lineup? Why do you have 3 number 9s playing in the front 3 like that? All 3 of them are number 9s. Okay, Colomwani, sure, at times with France, he's played wide. Richarlison is certainly not a wide player. And I know you don't have many options on the bench, but you still had Xavi Simons, you still had Matistel, you still had Sarr if you wanted to do something a bit different. But today, if you didn't know Roberto De Zerbi was on the bench, this could have well been a TUDOR team or a Frank team. And that, I'm sorry, that's not why they invested 5 years and 15 million a year for having the same as TUDOR. And I know you could say, it's his first game, Jules, be kind, give him some time. One, he doesn't have any time. Two, I'm sorry, but 10 days of training, and full training, by the way, there was not a game in between. It was 10 days where he could have double sessions, treble sessions. They could have set at the training ground for whole 10 days. He could have done anything he wanted for 10 days, right? I'm sorry, I didn't see today. I swear to you, it could have been Igor TUDOR on the bench. Nobody could have told.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it looks to me like, and if you watch his teams, they do have an identity normally, the way they play.
Yep.
And it's high risk football, but it's entertaining and it's effective and it's fast. And he's a bit of a live wire on the sideline. But I think, on looking at today's game, it's almost like he's caught in this crossfire of, right, I want to do it this way, but I'm thinking I might have to do it that way to stay up, and in the end it's something in the middle, which isn't very good.
Yeah.
And
at least it wasn't today.
I'm slightly concerned that he thinks, if I try and get him to do what I want to do and how I want to play now, we're definitely going to go down, because they can't do it. Probably can't do it, which is a worry if you're a Tottenham Hotspur player playing for such a big club. And you can't play that style of football that he wants. The positive football, the passing from the back, the taking the ball under pressure, the stretching the game, making the pitch big, all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if he's thinking, I'm worried we're going to get relegated doing that, so I'm going to have to change short term to try and get results. And that's going against how his teams play and his philosophies. And then you end up in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of what Jules is and where they were today. It was nothing. It was nothing, and you talk about players short of confidence. And I've also got an issue with something like Van de Ven on the deflections crazy. And by the way, Casey and I were talking, it was so good to see Kinski at least not at fault for it.
Kinski had a decent.
And he didn't do it because he was a guy under severe pressure. Right. So that was nice to see. He didn't make any. It wasn't a calamity. But on the goal, and I know there's a big deflection. You've got Van de Ven stood with his hands behind his back, and he could have.
For 2 or 3 seconds.
He could have came out early and closed that damn ball down, and you don't have to have your hands behind your back when you're outside the box, because guess what? You can't give a penalty away. Might give a free kick away, but at least you get out and close it down. And I think it typified Spurs for me, in a sense, why they're in this mire. There's 3 of them, all stood on the edge of the penalty area.
Inside the penalty area.
Inside it, with the hands behind the back, whilst a Sunderland player pursued down on the edge of the box and was able to get a strike in, and then the big deflection and the goal. You got to go and close those scenarios down. You got to put your body on the line, because you're at that end of the season, and there's a big question mark whether Spurs are going to be able to do this.
Well, after the game, Roberto De Zerbi was asked about the tough situation that he finds himself in. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
You mentioned the mentality that the team needs now. They're in the relegation zone now. Are you concerned about the impact that could have on them mentally, psychologically?
Well, you can see during the game. First of all, the players of Tottenham are all good guys, and they are suffering for this moment. They are not happy when we lose the game, or they are not happy to see Tottenham at the bottom of the table, for sure. But we have to find the energy. We have to find the right spirit to be positive, to think during the week.
Do you feel like the fear of relegation itself is the problem?
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting case. What do you make of what De Zerbi had to say there?
I thought the fear of relegation should be the motivation that everybody needs to get themselves out of this situation. They're too talented of a squad. We're talking about who's going to score the goals, who's going to do these things like that. But it doesn't have to be a striker. Whenever there's a team that's struggling scoring goals, I love seeing a center back pop up on a set piece. I love seeing a midfielder, come in from the wing and get on the end of something just to take some of that pressure off. And it just almost seems like that Jules talked about, you've got, I don't know if it's at 3 strikers to try to get something, but it's just, something's off. It's just not, it's not clicking. There's not the fight. that you want to see, and then there's not I don't know how you build confidence until you do something that builds confidence. And the only way you can do it is somebody has to say, take the responsibility. And I think that's what everybody's waiting for. Everybody's just thinking, Spurs will figure it out. They'll get a couple wins. They're too talented. It'll happen. And then each week it goes without doing it. It's that little bit, everyone's down. Fans are coming on. Press are coming on. And I'm still waiting for that, okay, who's grabbing this? Who's grabbing this, by the scruff of the neck and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. And who are the leaders?
Well, the other side of it as well, they haven't got a midfielder that can pass the ball with any great creativity. Paulinho, Conor Gallagher, Papi Sarr, Yves Bissouma, Bentancur's not around at the moment. Bentancur can pass the ball, but he's not around. They haven't got anybody that, we talked about the creativity. It can't just be your wide players or it has to be someone from the middle of the park as well, or the midfield. And they've got a lot of guys that run about and graft in the middle, but they've not got anybody who can hit a 50, 60 yard beautiful ball to a striker who's bent a run. Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, but Craig, I call a lot of Atletico Madrid games, and I watched Conor Gallagher run around, make tackles, get in the box, get stuff going, and I didn't even know he was on the pitch.
Well, he hasn't been getting a game.
Well, but still, he had a game today. He started today.
I know.
I want to see that run, tackle, fight, get somebody behind you. I mean, it's hard enough if you don't have a player that can play the ball like Churchy did for the second goal.
Yeah,
then you got to win something like Man City did against Caicedo. Press, win a ball in a good area, and make an easier chance. I didn't see either. And that's the part that I think is the most frustrating.
Jules was saying he's had 10 days, right, to look at players. He's got to, these next few days, he's got to look at these players and say, right, him, he's in, he's in there, right, I can trust him. I've got half a chance with him, and he's got to figure out the ones that he's got pretty much no chance with. He's not going to say that to them because he doesn't want to lose them. But he's got to, in his head, he's got to figure out, right, is it Matthias Tell and Xavi Simons here? Is it, talking about, if I'm Matthias Tell or Xavi Simons or anybody like that, and I got, as Joe said, the number 9's playing in the wider positions or wherever ahead of me, I'm asking a question. I say, what the hell am I doing? And so he has to figure that out quickly. The guys that are going to get him results, the guys that he can at least semi-trust at the moment to try and do a job. And if he doesn't figure that out, they're screwed. They're screwed. Because the more times you're trying to figure it out and the longer you're making all these changes, the less chance you have of getting results. So he has to figure it out quickly, and he's going to have to run with it.
Well, we've said it before that Spurs do have a lot of talented players, but do those players have the scrap in them, have that fight, have that grittiness to just churn out an ugly win? Well, if you look at their running of games now, from now till the end of the season, they're going up against a lot of teams that do have that grit and that scrap. Jules, if you look next, it's against Brighton, a team that De Zerbi knows very, very well. Then they're away at Wolves, they're away at Villa Park, then up against Leeds, then Chelsea and Everton. Where will they get their chances from?
That's a great question, to be fair. I mean, I think the Leeds home game, for me, even more than Wolves away, the Leeds at home might be the key there because it's so close to the end of the season. But Brighton next weekend, especially at home, because as we know, Spurs are the worst team at home, even worse than Burnley, or as bad as Burnley really this season. So at home, there's no guarantee they won 2 games all year, all season long at home in the league. So that's tricky. A Brighton team that, as we saw yesterday, is playing well, could potentially be fighting for a Conference League position for next season, all of that. So they will go there and will want to go for a win. And then you look at all the other fixtures, they've all have something to play for, apart from Wolves maybe, okay, but the rest, they will. So it's tricky. Even his communication will have to be good, and certainly it feels like we'll have to be better. The clip that we saw, he said like we need to find that energy. He didn't look like he even had energy today on the touchline or in this press conference. He also said they don't need a coach. They need I can be a father, I can be a brother, I can be okay. They need a coach too. I know they need some love, and I know they need some confidence. And the French have a great word. We have like this word, say câlinotherapie, which is like cuddle therapy, if you want.
Oh,
sure, they need a bit of that. No problem. Yeah, no, it's great. I knew you would. But sure. But they need a coach more than anything else, because as we saw today, they are all a bit lost. And if the structure is not there, if they don't really know what to do with the ball, if there's no creativity, like you said, if you start playing number 9s in all those wide positions, you lose Romero potentially as well because he came off injured, crying. This is not good. They need a coach before the dad, the brother, the nan, the granddad, the cousins, the whole family if you want, and all those like cuddle therapy, sure, but they need a coach too.
It's not enough.
Can you imagine one of our old managers with cuddle therapy?
Oh my
I've heard of pump therapy. There's pump therapy that works very well.
There's not enough psychologists
I know, exactly.
in London for this Tottenham team. But you know what would worry me? I think the home form is telling for various reasons. And I think some of it is structure and approach and the hiring of Thomas Frank and the way they went about it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But there's another side to it. When your home form is as poor as Tottenham's has been, and this sort of fits into the whole relegation battle, when your home form is that bad, part of it, not all of it, but part of it is telling me, and we know this, Casey, is when your own fans turn on you, when results are bad and the natives are restless, it's a tough place to be. When you're away from home, there's a few thousand. When you're at home, there's 60 or 70,000. And quite often they've not liked what they've seen this season. And I think the players have been affected by that. And I'm not saying that's right, but you live and die by how you're affected by it.
Right.
And I think not all of Tottenham's results, but a big chunk of the results have come down to them folding. Folding when the crowd got on their back in second halves of games. And early in the season, actually, it was going behind very early. They almost went behind in every game they played. But they've folded in so many games, particularly in the second half of the season at home, that I think that would tell me that the mindset in this Tottenham camp is weak, because they haven't been able to handle when the crowd get anxious and nervous and noisy. Players start to hide. And I think we're seeing a lot of that with Tottenham, and they have to get out of that. And out of it quickly.
Arsenal may end up owing a huge debt of gratitude to Andrea Berta for what has quietly become one of their most lethal weapons in the Premier League title race. Mikel Arteta often refers to his substitutes as finishers, and the numbers back him up. They've been making a massive difference all season long. The idea first took shape back in 2023 after a long conversation with England rugby coach Eddie Jones, but it truly came to life last September in Bilbao. On that night, Arsenal secured an impressive 2-0 away win over Athletic Club at San Mamés in the Champions League, thanks to late goals from Leandro Trossard and Gabriel Martinelli. Both forwards also assisted each other, and after the match, Arteta was quick to praise the decisive impact of his finishers. Interestingly, more than 2 years earlier, Arteta had described his substitutes as impact players, but the term never really stuck. This time, however, finishers has become part of Arsenal's identity, largely because of the incredible influence these players have had, both domestically and in Europe. The term wasn't just symbolic either. Arteta and his coaching staff deliberately embraced it to remove any sense of disappointment among players left out of the starting 11. There's now a strong belief within the club that these finishers are just as important as the starters. They carry the responsibility of stepping onto the pitch and deciding games, and more often than not, they deliver. The stats speak volumes. After Kai Havertz's midweek winner in Lisbon, Arsenal lead all clubs in Europe's top 5 leagues for goal contributions from substitutes, with 38 in total, 24 goals and 14 assists. Spain's Celta Vigo sits second with 34, tied with French giants Paris Saint-Germain. No other Premier League side even cracks the top 10 in Europe. Within England, Chelsea come closest to Arsenal, with 27 goal contributions from substitutes, 17 goals and 10 assists. Remarkably, even teams not competing in Europe, like Leeds, Fulham, and relegation-threatened Wolves and Burnley, have produced more impact from the bench than Manchester City, who have just 10 contributions, 5 goals and 5 assists. Another encouraging sign for Arsenal is that they've already surpassed last season's total of 25 combined goals and assists from substitutes, with potentially 11 games still to play. Last season, teams like Brighton, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Liverpool, and Manchester United all recorded more goal contributions from the bench than Arsenal. This time around, however, Arteta's side has outperformed them all, highlighting the real value of the squad depth built under Andrea Berta last summer. At times, Berta's work at the Emirates has faced criticism, especially with big signings like Victor Gyökeres, Noni Madueke, and Eberechi struggling for consistency. But their arrivals have undeniably strengthened the squad's depth and overall quality. That depth was evident in January, when Arsenal felt confident enough to send Ethan Nwaneri out on loan to Marseille. Back in January 2025, the Gunners were desperately searching for attacking reinforcements until the final moments of the transfer window due to an unprecedented injury crisis. Injuries have still been an issue this season, but the difference now is clear: Arsenal have the depth and quality to cope, and that could be what ultimately keeps their title dream alive. That added depth hasn't just helped Arsenal survive difficult moments, it has reshaped the way they approach matches. Opponents are no longer facing a team that fades late on. Instead, they're up against a side that becomes even more dangerous as the game progresses. Fresh legs, tactical flexibility, and players capable of changing the rhythm instantly have turned Arsenal into one of the most unpredictable teams in Europe. Inside the dressing room, this shift has also strengthened competition. Players know that starting a match is no longer the only path to influence it. Performances off the bench are now just as valued, and that internal pressure has raised standards across the squad. Training intensity has increased, and Arteta has more tactical freedom, knowing he can rely on multiple game changers at any moment. The psychological impact on opponents is just as significant. Teams that manage to contain Arsenal for 60 or 70 minutes are still left with the looming threat of high-quality reinforcements entering the pitch. It forces rivals to rethink their energy management and defensive structure, often leading to late mistakes, exactly the moments Arsenal have been exploiting. There has also been growing recognition across Europe of how effectively Arsenal have embraced this model. Analysts and former players have pointed to Arteta's adaptation as a reflection of modern football, where squad depth and in-game management are just as critical as starting lineups. The influence of ideas borrowed from other sports, like rugby, has only added to the sense that Arsenal are evolving ahead of many of their rivals. For Andrea Berta, this evolution is becoming a strong response to earlier criticism. While not every signing has delivered consistently, the collective impact of the squad he helped assemble is now difficult to ignore. Arsenal are no longer overly dependent on a small core of players. Instead, they have built a system where contributions come from every corner of the squad. As the title race intensifies, this could prove decisive. Fatigue, injuries, and fixture congestion tend to expose teams with limited depth, but Arsenal appear better equipped than most to handle those pressures. Their ability to maintain intensity across 90 minutes, and often decide games late, has already earned them crucial points. The challenge now is consistency. Maintaining this level of impact from the bench requires not only fitness and form, but also continued belief from players who may not start regularly. Arteta's man management will be tested, especially as expectations rise and every match carries greater weight. Still, there is a growing sense that Arsenal have found something sustainable. What began as a tactical idea has turned into a defining feature of their identity. And if their finishers continue to deliver in decisive moments, it may not just shape their season, it could ultimately define the outcome of the Premier League title race.